The Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Well, what you have to do, I think would be great, is just have the kind of intensity that your sister has, that your sister has, that your sister has, that your sister has.
What's the best part of the game for you?
Winning. As soon as the ball touched my hands, game time.
Miller for three, and he got it. And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line. Reggie Miller came over. It's not right. Okay, MJ is upset. Miller away. Bang! Miller gives the Pacers the lead. He backed it in. He backed it in.
He's got some of the most iconic basketball shots in NBA history.
He loved the big moments.
Gets it in the middle for the win.
He perfected and wielded one of the most iconic jump shots in basketball history.
Here's Reggie. Here's the turnaround. Here's the shot.
Long before the modern three-point revolution, he struck fear into the hearts of opponents who had to chase him around the perimeter. He was a bad man on the court, and he knew it. From the Golden State to the Hoosier State, this is the story behind Reggie Miller. Reginald Wayne Miller was born on August 24, 1965, to Air Force Sergeant Saul Miller and Carrie Miller in Riverside, California, one of 5 siblings in an outrageously athletic household. Older brother Daryl enjoyed a 5-year MLB career with the then California Angels, while older sister Cheryl was one of the most accomplished women's basketball players of her day, winning an Olympic gold medal in 1984. To enter the same athletic stratosphere as his older siblings, Reggie had to defy the odds. He was born with hip deformities that caused severely splayed feet, which required him to use leg braces until he was 5. There was no guarantee he'd ever be able to walk without assistance, but walk unassisted he did. And before long, young Reggie was running around California baseball fields and basketball courts, proving himself an athletic force in his own right. As a little leaguer, Miller showed promise both at the plate and on the mound. But after enrolling at the same high school where Cheryl was already making a name for herself, Reggie made the switch to basketball. Though he got a late start on the court, years of being bullied by Cheryl in now famous one-on-one games had prepared him well, with Reggie admitting his unorthodox shooting mechanics were forged by trying to get his jumper up over his big sister. You never had to go out there and tell him he needed to practice. Saul Miller told the Indianapolis Star in 2001, he automatically did it. He was disciplined. That confluence of discipline, talent, and good old family genes led to a stellar high school career, but it was hard to escape Cheryl's shadow.
He said I had 40. And oh my gosh, Reggie, that's awesome.
Hey, by the way, how did you do tonight?
I said, well, I had a big game. He goes, what, 60?
Cheryl kind of looks at my dad. Dad kind of looks at Cheryl. She's like, oh, she had 105. I was like, huh?
Reggie may not have put up Wilt-like numbers in high school, but he did enough to land at UCLA. As a Bruin, Miller ensured he would no longer be just Cheryl Miller's little brother. By his sophomore season, Reggie was averaging over 15 points per game on 55% shooting for the NIT champions. He was also named MVP of the 1985 NIT tournament. As a junior, Miller exploded, becoming a 25-point scorer and an All-American. However, it was when the NCAA adopted the three-point line in 1986-87 that Miller, by then a senior, showed off the skill set that would propel him to NBA stardom. In his final collegiate season, Miller averaged 22.3 points, 5.4 rebounds, 2.2 assists, and 2 steals, while shooting nearly 60% inside the arc and 44% from deep on 4.9 three-point attempts per game. Though UCLA was upset by Wyoming in the second round of the NCAA tournament, Miller had done more than enough to assure his NBA future, finishing as the Bruins' #2 scorer all time, behind only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That didn't mean much to folks in Indianapolis, though, with fans at the Pacers' 1987 draft party booing the selection of Miller at number 11. Their reasoning? Pacers fans wanted the team to select Indiana product Steve Alford, who went 26th overall and would go on to average 4.4 points per game over a 4-year NBA career. Expectations weren't exactly sky high for Miller either, as the lanky shooting guard was joining a 500 team that had yet to enjoy any measure of success since moving from the ABA to the NBA as part of the 1976 merger. Team success would remain slow to come by even after Miller's arrival, but the new kid in town provided a glimpse of better days to come. Coming off the bench as a rookie, Miller averaged 10 points per game and broke Larry Bird's rookie record for threes in a season. As a sophomore starter, he averaged 16 points and shot better than 40% from deep for the first of 10 times in his career. It was in his third season that Miller and the Pacers took off though. After going 66-98 over Miller's first 2 seasons, Indiana won 42 games in 1989-90, posting the franchise's first winning season in 9 years. Miller's star turn was a big reason why, as the 24-year-old averaged 24.6 points on 51-41-87 shooting. That performance earned Miller his first of 5 All-Star selections and a runner-up finish in Most Improved Player voting. Midway through that 1989-90 campaign, he outdueled Michael Jordan as part of a 44-point performance that served notice to the rest of the association. Miller and his Pacers were for real.
He encored his career night of 38 with another career high of 43 and counting. It's not bad. It's been a while since anybody's dropped that big a load on the Bulls. 44 points for Reggie Miller.
Suddenly, this forgotten ABA franchise was on the NBA map. Miller was Indiana's first All-Star in 13 years. His constant motion and off-ball work as mesmerizing for Pacers fans as it was exhausting for opposing defenders. Not even a first-round sweep at the hands of the defending champion Pistons could quell the excitement. But as every NBA fan knows by now, such early excitement is often met by years of postseason heartbreak and disappointment. Over the next 3 seasons, Miller averaged nearly 22 points on 50-38-89 shooting without missing a single game for Pacers teams that won a middling 40-41 games every year. During the 92-93 campaign, Miller set Indiana's single-game scoring record, which still stands more than 30 years later.
He's the guy that's seeking to be the go-to guy for these Hornets.
Reggie Miller with another three-pointer. Reggie finished up. The official numbers have arrived. 57 points on 16 of 29 from the floor, 4 of 11 three-point land, 21 of 23 free throws, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and a steal.
Though Miller was often electric in the postseason, averaging 27 and 31.5 points per game in the 1992 and 1993 playoffs respectively, Indiana compiled a 3-12 record over Reggie's first 4 trips to the playoffs. Something had to give. Ahead of the 1993-94 season, the Pacers hired Larry Brown as their new head coach, then traded All-Star forward Detlef Schrempf for the defensive-minded Derek McKee. They also signed Haywood Workman to serve as the team's new starting point guard. The roster shakeup and high-profile coaching change proved just the jolt the Pacers needed. Miller's scoring dipped below 20 points per game for the first time in 5 years, but his efficiency soared as the star guard became just the 3rd player in history, after Bird and Mark Price, to join the vaunted 50-40-90 club. Miller was the only player to accomplish the feat during the 90s. The Pacers' 47 wins marked the team's best showing in 21 years. In sweeping the 4th-seeded Magic in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, Miller helped the Pacers to the franchise's first NBA playoff series victory. It was during that 94 postseason Miller officially became a superstar and a household name, thanks in large part to an A-list movie director. After upsetting the top-seeded Hawks in the 2nd round, the Pacers drew the battle-tested Knicks in the Eastern Conference Final, the team that had eliminated them a year earlier. During an unforgettable Game 5 performance, which saw Miller score 25 of his 39 points in the 4th quarter, Indiana's franchise player famously jawed at Spike Lee, who was sitting in his customary courtside seats at Madison Square Garden.
Miller open again. His foot on the line. That's a 2-pointer. And Reggie Miller in an animated discussion with Spike Lee.
After rallying his Pacers back from 12 down in the final frame, Miller provided Lee and the Knicks with an enduring image that still lives in NBA infamy. Decades before Dame Time entered the NBA lexicon, that Game 5 performance birthed the notion of Miller Time. It also sparked a bitter, years-long rivalry between Miller's Pacers and Lee's beloved Knicks. New York got the last laugh by winning games 6 and 7 en route to the NBA Finals. But if Lee and company thought they had taken Miller's best punch in the spring of '94, they were sorely mistaken. Miller returned to the All-Star game and earned his first All-NBA selection in 1994-95, leading the Pacers to their first 50-win season as an NBA club before sweeping Atlanta in the first round. To get back to the East Final, Indiana would have to slay New York in the second round. Late in Game 1, it wasn't looking great, as the Knicks held a 6-point lead with less than 19 seconds remaining. What ensued over those final 18.7 seconds has become part of playoff lore, as Miller scored 8 points in a 9-second flurry that propelled the Pacers to victory.
Game that's seen nearly 60 fouls called. Actually, that is short of the record for both teams in a playoff game. Miller for 3, and he got it. Reggie Miller with a clutch tray, and it's 105-102. And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line.
A make is okay for the Pacers.
March misses. Batted around. Ewing hit, but his shot no good. Reggie Miller with a foul in 7.5 seconds.
Orlando last year.
Miller hits 2.
A couple weeks later, the Pacers would survive a Game 7 epic at MSG to finally beat the Knicks and punch their ticket back to the East Final. Unfortunately, after averaging 28 points over the first 6 games of a memorable series against Shaq and Penny's Magic, Miller was held to 12 points on 5 of 13 shooting in a blowout Game 7 loss. It would take a while for a devastated Miller to get another crack at a title run, though he did get to taste gold medal glory with Team USA at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. A late-season eye injury sidelined Miller to start the '96 playoffs, which saw the third-seeded Pacers fall to the sixth-seeded Hawks in the first round. Injuries to McKee, Workman, and starting center Rick Smits then knocked the Pacers right out of the playoff picture in 1996-97. However, the next great Pacers team of the Miller era took shape during that disappointing year, as Indiana acquired guards Mark Jackson and Jalen Rose, while big man Antonio Davis continued to develop. Larry Bird also replaced Brown in the offseason. It all coalesced the following year, when the 97-98 Pacers ripped off 58 wins. Miller received down-ballot MVP votes for the first time in his career, then led Indiana past Cleveland and New York in the playoffs, advancing to the conference finals for the third time in 5 years. Their opponent this time would be their toughest yet, Michael Jordan's defending champion Bulls, who were looking for a 6th championship in 8 years to complete their last dance together. Though the Pacers ultimately came up short, Miller's squad pushed Chicago to the absolute limit in ways few teams ever could. Seemingly unwilling to go a single postseason without a career-defining moment, Miller added another one in that '98 epic against Jordan's Bulls.
Harper's on Miller. McKee gets it in the middle for the win. It's 4/10 of a second. Yeah, you can dance, Reggie. One of the greatest clutch playoff performers of his generation has apparently done it again.
Still, a blown fourth-quarter lead in Game 7 had to be agonizing for a star who had just about everything except a championship ring by that point. Unfortunately, close but no cigar would come to define Miller's postseason career. There was another East Final loss in the lockout-shortened 1999 season, where the second-seeded Pacers fell to the arch-rival Knicks despite an 8-seeded New York squad losing Patrick Ewing in the series. In the Knicks' Game 6 clincher, Lee and the Garden faithful had a field day with Miller, who scored a measly 8 points on 3 of 18 shooting. Still, year in, year out, Miller and the Pacers kept plugging away, and their efforts were finally rewarded with a trip to the finals in 2000. Though his regular season numbers had started to slip in what would prove to be his last year as an All-Star, a 34-year-old Miller averaged 24 points per game during a 2000 playoff run that saw top-seeded Indiana outlast Ray Allen's Bucks, Allen Iverson's 76ers, and yes, the Knicks again.
I think he can probably do it tonight if he wants, as Reggie Miller's point total continues. He started with 5 points in the first, got 4 in the second, 8 in the third, and then it was Miller time. 17 in the fourth quarter, 34 in the game.
Congratulations to the Indiana Pacers. Well deserved. The best team all year. They proved it during the regular season and during the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Though they fell in 6 games to Shaq and Kobe's Lakers in the finals, it's worth noting how the Pacers pushed Los Angeles, just as they had done to Jordan's mighty Bulls. One of the Lakers' victories in that series went to overtime, and in the Lakers' 12 playoff series during their early aughts three-peat, Indiana was one of only 3 teams, and the only finals opponent to win 2 games against LA, along with Sacramento and Portland. The 2000 finals run was the end of another era in Miller's Pacers tenure. Following through on a promise he made to coach no more than 3 seasons, Bird stepped down and was replaced by fellow Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. Smits retired, Jackson left for Toronto, and Dale Davis was traded to Portland in the deal that landed Indiana Jermaine O'Neal. That move would help fuel the next great team of the Miller era, but there were growing pains to get through. The new-look Pacers faded in the 2000-2001 season, finishing as a 41-win 8 seed before a quick first-round playoff exit at the hands of Iverson's Sixers. Indiana actually opened that series with a stunning upset though, thanks to what had by then become an annual rite of spring in the NBA, a memorable Reggie Miller playoff moment.
They've watched their Sixers blow an 18-point second-half lead. Don't waste time here, Jalen Rose. Out in front, Reggie for 3. Miller, a three! Bang! Miller gives the Pacers the lead with 2.9 remaining.
With O'Neal breaking out and Rose taking on more of the offensive responsibilities, Miller was relegated to 3rd leading scorer for a 42-win Pacers team that once again finished 8th in 2001-2002. Yet, once again, the playoffs were Miller time. After averaging 16.5 points during the regular season, a 36-year-old Miller averaged a team-high 23.6 points on 63% true shooting during a first-round series against the top-seeded Nets, pushing the eventual Eastern Conference champions to a do-or-die Game 5. He then single-handedly pushed that deciding game to double overtime.
Kevin Ollie brings it up, throws it across, Miller for 3! Oh! He backed it in! He backed it in! And the game is tied! We're going to overtime! No fouls to give. Miller gets past Kittles. Miller inside with the slam! Reggie Miller ties it with 3.1 remaining.
He drove it to the rim and he got the dunk. It's exactly what they...
With the defensive-minded and volatile Ron Artest replacing Rose, and Rick Carlisle replacing Thomas on the sidelines, the Pacers took on a new identity as a hard-nosed squad. By the time Indiana exploded for a franchise record 61 wins in 2003-2004, Miller was a 10 points per game player with the lowest usage of his career. Still, he started 80 games for the league's top seed as a 38-year-old, and the Pacers pushed the eventual champion Pistons to 6 games in the East Final. Indiana then entered the final season of Miller's career with the team's best chance to win a championship, but the 2004-2005 Pacers were derailed by the events of the infamous Malice at the Palace. The brawl in Detroit, which spilled into the stands, resulted in lengthy suspensions for Indiana's top 3 players, with Artest's season-long ban all but ending the team's title hopes. Miller played some inspiring ball for his undermanned club, averaging nearly 20 points per game during one stretch in December and 21 points during another 10-game run in March, a month after he had announced, through his sister, that he would be retiring at the conclusion of the season. One of the most touching moments of that season saw even Madison Square Garden, led by old nemesis Spike Lee, embrace the legendary Knicks killer. The 6th-seeded Pacers eventually fell to the rival Pistons in the second round of the 2005 playoffs. Miller, by then 39 years old with 1,533 games under his belt, posted 27 points on 11 of 16 shooting in the final game of his career. When he checked out for the last time, he was met by a standing ovation not only from the Indiana faithful, but by the Pistons too.
Larry takes a 20 just to let the crowd. You know how that is so cool.
Yes, it is.
Larry Brown, who coached Reggie, Larry is so human. He understands if you let play resume, You know, the crowd is back into it. The game winds up. And Larry calls a timeout so he can bring his team to the other side of the court and join in this.
The emotion in the crowd that night might have seemed over the top to those outside the Hoosier state, but Miller had endeared himself to Pacers fans in ways few athletes have ever connected to a fan base. Though he never led the Pacers to the promised land, Miller was the Pacers for the better part of 2 decades. Only 5 players have ever played more games for one team, and only 7 players in NBA history have appeared in more playoff games without a championship ring to show for it. Plenty of champions and fellow Hall of Famers have retired without even a fraction of Miller's postseason memories or heroics, though. To give you an idea of how beloved Miller was in Indianapolis, O'Neal once checked himself out of a 2005 game while only 3 points shy of the Pacers' single-game scoring record so that the honor would still belong to Reggie. A couple years after his retirement, it appeared possible Miller might finally don another team's colors, but he decided against an invitation from the 2007-2008 Celtics, who went on to win the title. Even without that ring, there was simply nothing left for Miller to prove, as he embarked on a broadcasting career with TNT that has lasted even longer than his playing career did. A broadcasting career that began, by the way, with Reggie in the shadow of TNT's sideline reporter, Cheryl Miller. How fitting.
Can you believe that?
I didn't know Cheryl Miller's little brother played basketball.
The 5-time All-Star and Olympic gold medalist scored more than 28,000 NBA points between the regular season and playoffs. His 25,279 regular season points are nearly double that of Smith's, who ranks second in Pacers history. A workhorse till the end, Miller played every single game in the season 6 times, played 80-plus games 11 times, and missed 10-plus games in a season only twice in 18 years. His 13-year reign as the NBA's all-time three-point leader, which came to an end when Ray Allen leapfrogged him in 2011, is the longest such reign. Of the top 32 three-point shooters in league history as of 2024, Miller, a 1987 draftee, is the only one who debuted before 1994. As a shooter and off-ball savant, he was ahead of his time. As a clutch performer, he has few equals across the entire sports world. A Cali kid who wasn't even supposed to walk properly, who wasn't even the best baller in his own family, became the symbol of Indiana's proud basketball history, the world's most famous arena's biggest villain, and one of the 75 greatest players in NBA history.
What are you guys talking about?
You're on the list.
You're on the list, brother.
On the list, man.
Whoa! I'm a little shaken right now because I wasn't expecting to be on that list. Truthfully.
Many took umbrage with Miller's presence on that 75th anniversary team, but not a soul in Indiana did. Ask any Pacers fan, and they'll tell you any time is Miller time. After the lifetime of memories Reggie provided them, who could blame them for feeling that way? Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.